What's up? I'm Justin. Welcome to my show Upgraded, where I take some of my favorite dishes and make them a little bit more interesting. Will they be better? I don't know. We'll see. Let's get cooking. For this episode of Upgraded, I will be tackling fried rice. My favorite rice dish in the whole world, fried rice can't be more simple and economical. We're going to start by dicing up a quarter of an onion, Gordon Ramsay style. Hold your onion down firmly and make long incisions lengthwise down the onion. Make sure you don't slice all the way to the end of the onion so it's still intact at the root. Turn your onion 90 degrees and start slicing down the width of the onion to get nice even little pieces. Next, mince 2 cloves of garlic. It's easier to mince the garlic by smashing it first, so everything's nice and flat. Finally, grate about half an inch of ginger on a microplane, reserving half for the rice. The other half we're going to add into some ground pork. You can use any type of protein in fried rice, beef, shrimp, chicken. Add some leftover ground pork from dumpling making, so I'm using that here. Add some sliced scallions and about a quarter teaspoon of sesame oil to give the pork a little bit more flavor and get rid of the porky funk. Crack 2 eggs with one hand because you like to flex, and discreetly clean up any egg you spilt on the table. Whip the eggs with chopsticks because you're Asian, and add a splash of water. The water will make the scrambled eggs a little silkier. In your fanciest wok, add 2 tablespoons of oil, wait until very hot, and add the onions, garlic, and ginger, sauteing until fragrant. Add the pork in and stir to make sure it breaks up into small pieces. Next we're going to add some frozen corn and peas because we gotta be healthy. And now comes the rice. Always try to use leftover rice when making fried rice, not just because it reduces waste, but because cold leftover rice is slightly drier and harder than its fresh cooked counterpart. The resulting fried rice will be fluffier and less mushy. I know this is a little unconventional, but take out the rice and set it aside for just a sec. In the empty wok that's still very hot, pour in your eggs. I like my scrambled eggs silkier rather than creamy, like a French scramble, so we're gonna let the eggs sit for a few seconds before touching it, allowing it to cook and become layers of eggy goodness. Right before the eggs are completely done, dump the rice back into the wok and toss vigorously. Add a touch of sesame oil, a generous amount of salt, and white pepper, which is spicier and funkier than black pepper. You'll notice I don't really give any specific measurements to these ingredients because with these dishes you really just have to feel the measurements in your soul. You'll know when you put enough when your ancestors come to you and whisper in your ear, "That's perfect." But for those of you still learning how to communicate with your ancestors, the measurements are listed in the video description below. Pour your finished fried rice in an aggressively small bowl for dramatic effect, and top with a bit of scallions and dig in. With a pair of chopsticks, of course, not a spoon, because spoons are for weaklings. Now, you might be asking me, Justin, with such a perfect bowl of fried rice, should you even try to make it better? To which I reply, the question isn't should I, it's could I? First thing we're going to make different is the rice. Rice is great, rice is simple, but rice can be made more flavorful. The night before making this dish, we're going to make some flavor-boosted rice by borrowing a technique from Hainan chicken. Good Hainan chicken uses chicken broth to actually cook the rice. So in our 1 cup of washed rice, we're going to add 1 cup of water and a little less than 1 cup of chicken broth. We're also going to add 1 star anise pod for a slight licoricey flavor. Start the cooker and do a little rice cooker dance. Once the rice is done, take it out and put it in the fridge for overnight aging. The next day, as exhibited by my costume change, we're going to start by making a marinade for protein. I chose to make a Vietnamese-inspired lemongrass chicken. The lemongrass brings a slight citrusy fragrance to the chicken, which I hope will counteract the richness of the fried rice. Into a bowl goes 1 stalk of lemongrass cut into slices and 2 cloves of garlic minced. Add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 teaspoon of fish sauce, 1 tablespoon of Chinese cooking wine, and the zest of half a lime for some extra acidity. Stir together until the sugar dissolves and add the chicken and toss. I'm using 2 skinless boneless chicken thighs, which is my favorite cut of protein. Lean yet virtually impossible to mess it up. It really is the best protein for a quick dish. Set aside and let the chicken marinate for 15 minutes and up to an hour. Next we're going to prep our corn. I want to roast this corn so that it gets a slight char on it for extra flavor. Brush it down with some oil and wrap it in foil. throw it in a preheated oven and roast at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 35 minutes. Meanwhile, we're going to peel and cut 2 carrots. I'm cutting the carrot by tilting my knife at a 45-degree angle, slicing, moving down an inch, rotating the carrot by 90 degrees, and cutting again at an angle. This method is called guindal in Chinese, which roughly translates to rolling knife, and is commonly used for prepping vegetables and stews. We're going to boil these carrots in water for about 8 minutes before taking them out. Next, we're going to make a soy glaze. In a small pan, heat 2 tablespoons each of olive oil and honey. As the pan heats up, the sugar in the honey will start to caramelize, creating a glaze. When the honey starts to bubble, add 1 tablespoon of soy sauce and stir. After a slight reduction, I'm talking like no more than 1 minute, we're going to add our carrots and toss the coat in the glaze. Take it off the heat and set aside. Once the corn is done, we're going to take it out of the oven. My corn wasn't quite as brown as I liked. Of course, we could just throw it under the broiler for a minute or two, but we could also use a blowtorch for dramatic effect. Char on all sides and slice the kernels off the cob and set it aside. In a pan, heat up 2 tablespoons of oil and add the chicken thighs, shaking off any excess marinade and lemongrass. Sear for about 2 minutes before flipping and searing for another 2. The chicken should start to caramelize and char slightly from the soy sauce and sugar. Take it off the heat and let it rest for 5 minutes. Wipe out your pan and add in a bit of oil as well as the rice. We're going to take inspiration from my second favorite dish, stone pot bibimbap, and crisp up our rice a little bit. Let the rice fry for about 2 minutes before flipping it like a boss and frying for another 2 minutes. Of course, you can't have fried rice without an egg, and I'm making a fried egg for this one, because, well, you'll see. With our elements all cooked up, we're going to assemble. Start with a layer of our crispy rice. We're going to break it up slightly so the crispy grains get mixed up a little better. Next, we're going to add a layer of lemongrass chicken, which I sliced. Add a few spoonfuls of the charred corn, and a few pieces of the soy-glazed carrots. Top with our fried egg, and sprinkle on some scallions, salt, and white pepper as usual. Optionally, you could grate some lime zest on the dish. I think it adds just a little bit more acidity and freshness to brighten the dish. Bring the dish in for a close-up because we're going to get the first egg break on this show. Now this fried rice recipe takes about an hour to make versus the simpler 10-minute version, but each element just improves the rice significantly, from the crunchy charred corn kernels and the sweet and salty carrots to the tang of the lemongrass chicken and the single anise pod in the rice. The end result is an incredibly well-balanced and surprisingly flavorful dish that is well worth the effort.